Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name is Cody. Today we saw the markets moving higher here with corn up 4 1/4, soybeans up 14 cents, and wheat in Chicago here trading 9 cents higher. There's three things I want to talk about today. First of all, ethanol production that came out on Wednesday. Export sales came out this morning, and then a little bit of a summary of what we've seen in terms of official reports out of the Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Let's get right into ethanol. First of all, this week we saw ethanol production unchanged over last week at 965,000 barrels per day. That still remains about 100,000 barrels per day over the 4-year average of production for this week in the year. So very strong years this year, very strong year last year in terms of overall ethanol production on a weekly basis. When you look at the production compared to last year, you'll notice we're up 4.5% cumulatively year to date. So that's very strong production as well. When you look at stocks, you'll notice this week we improved 32,000 barrels per day on ethanol stocks this week. That brought us up to 18.56 million barrels. So in general, I would say ethanol production continues to show strong overall numbers, continues to be a strong demand center for corn in the balance sheet. Let's talk a little bit about the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, basically ending off its tour here today in Rochester, Minnesota. They're going to talk about the results from South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and give an overall U.S. Projected yield forecast. So far on the crop tour, what we've seen out of Pro Farmer is a lower than expected yield out of Ohio. Basically, Pro Farmer expecting to see 148.37 bushels per acre out of that region based on the crop scouting that they did. USDA is currently sitting at 168 bushels per acre. Out of South Dakota, they're expecting to see a little bit better production than where the USDA is sitting at in the August report. So right now, Pro Farmer expecting 165.94 bushels per acre out of South Dakota compared to the USDA August estimates of 160 bushels per acre. So a little bit of deviation there on the first day. On the second day, Illinois is basically on par with the USDA. Pro Farmer looking and seeing a lot of variability, but on average across the scouting that they did across Illinois, they came up with an average yield estimate of 171.6, which is on par with the 172 bushel per acre yield estimate that the USDA put out there in August. When you look at Nebraska, you'll notice there is a little bit of a deviation here. Pro Farmer seeing 165.16 bushel per acre yield out of Nebraska. The USDA is currently forecasting 187 bushels per acre. So a significant difference there in overall yield in Nebraska and Ohio and South Dakota. So it's going to be interesting to see what their overall overall U.S. estimate for yield will be, and they'll be releasing that later on tonight. Now, export sales came out this morning. This I thought was pretty interesting. We saw nice export sales out of corn, soybeans, and wheat. Corn was the only one that outperformed here with 282,000 metric tons. That was above the high side of analyst expectations and above last week's abysmal sales of only 29,000 metric tons. So very positive here for corn. When you look at soybeans and wheat, soybeans was able to book 46,000 metric tons. That was good to see that it was positive. We didn't see any cancellations there, so in general I would consider that an overall positive for soybeans. And then when you look at wheat, 314,000 metric tons. That was on the lower side of the range, but still within analyst expectations. When you look at corn here, you'll notice corn for new crop was able to come in at 576,000 metric tons. That was on the high side of analyst expectations. New crop soybean sales of 784,000 metric tons. That was also on the high side of expectations. So in general, new crop sales were relatively positive. Now, when you look at the cumulative export sales for old crop, there's two things I want you to take away from this. First of all, when you look at soybeans, we are basically on pace to meet USDA expectations. The cumulative sales that we've seen here for soybeans is 50.7 million metric tons at this time of the year. Last year we had around 46 million metric tons. That's the blue line, and basically we're well above that, but we're also about on par with our expectations, taking into account seasonality. According to our models, we would expect to see around 50.8 million metric tons sold at this time of the year. Right now we're at 50.7. So I would say soybeans is on par with meeting USDA expectations. However, that is not the case here for corn. You'll notice cumulative export sales for corn here is 47.4 million metric tons versus this time last year when we were at 48.6. And you'll notice, based on our models, taking into account seasonality, we would expect to see about 48.2 million metric tons sold during this time of the year. Right now we're at 47.4. So we are behind behind the pace that we would expect to see to meet USDA expectations. We're going to need to see a pickup in export sales in the weeks to come. But right now we've seen corn prices really kind of hang in there after that sharp drop in prices last Wednesday when the USDA announced significant higher ending stocks in that WASDE report. Other than that, guys, that wraps up today's show. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, please give the office a call. The number is 877-472-4607. And remember, if you haven't done so already, take a demo of that 14-day free trial. See what it's like to have live quotes in the palm of your hand on that mobile platform, being able to scroll through, looking at corn, soybeans, and wheat, being able to look over charts and get a sense of where your overall position is in the market. So go to grainhedge.com. You can get a 14-day free trial there, and I'll be in touch with you, give you a personalized one-on-one walkthrough to make sure you get the most out of that trial. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here Friday for the weekly wrap-up.